Hello and welcome to the Magical Midlife Podcast, where you get a refreshing, uplifting and optimistic perspective on life in your 40s and 50s. I'm your host, Lindsay de Swart, and I'm delighted that you've joined us here today, so let's jump right in. Good morning, and welcome back to the Magical Midlife Podcast. It's fantastic that you're here for Season 3 for another episode. So today I am delighted to welcome a guest from England, Adele Stickland. And Adele, I was very lucky to read her book, Gorgeous. I think it might have been 2019, may have been early 2020, but it was certainly before COVID crazies. So Adele, welcome.
Hi, Lindsay. Thank you very much for your invite to be on your amazing podcast. I really appreciate it.
You are so welcome. I think, and we can tell this from our brief chat beforehand, I think we have a lot in common. Yes. Yes. So thankfully we have a time restriction of podcasts, because otherwise we might just go on and on and on, which would be awesome. Anyway, so before we do that, let us dive straight into today's interview. So please, can I hand it right over to you? And why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, Adele?
Well, my name is Adele Stickland. I am 52, heading up to my 53rd birthday, and I never tell anybody that, but it's only because of you, your warmth, and the name of the podcast, really.
Yes, it's like a badge of honour, isn't it?
It is.
Cool,
So
love
here
that.
I am, loud and proud, 52, heading to 53. I have 3 children, no animals, no pets in our life. My husband and both of my sons are severely asthmatic, so we can't have any dogs, which has been a pandemic. Everybody was looking for puppies and things like that to keep them company, so we couldn't do any of that. But yes, I have an oldest son who is 24, Ben. Mm-hmm. And he is now living away from home, set himself up in business and doing incredibly well and buying crazy cars and, doing all those things that you do in your 20s, finding yourself.
Good for him.
Well, yes, it kind of, I worry. And then I always think about The 4 Personality Types by Gretchen Rubin. I don't know if you're familiar with them. And she talks about the rebel. And when
so just in case somebody doesn't know about those, what are the 4 types? Can you remember them?
I can't remember them all, but I the 2 that stay in my head are upholders, people that uphold all the rules, and that tends to be women. So we'll give ourselves, if there's something to do at the PTA, and you'll be the one that puts your hand up because we uphold all the rules. And then there's a rebel who just disregards all the rules. And I've always pigeonholed my lovely Ben into that. He rebelled at school, but interestingly, what she says about rebels is that they actually, as they get older, they position themselves into a place where they can rebel. So they'll go into the military and rebel, or they'll go into business and rebel. So they have to find a structure, right, to rebel against, which is really interesting. Yeah. And I can't remember what the other 2 are, but I do write about them in my book, actually, and I've forgotten.
Oh, cool. But, I can't remember either. Otherwise, I'd add to that. But anyway,
well, I'm sure your listeners will write in and tell you. But there's another one that upholds the rules for themselves as well. And I think that's what I do. I'm very good at kind of giving myself rules that I've got to follow and then follow through. So that's Ben.
Okay, cool.
And then I've got Joe, who's 15, and he is what I would call a screenager. Right. He's at the age where he's constantly on screens. And then there's Zoe, who is 14, and she's fast approaching her, 20s and 30s. You know what it's like, because you've got a little girl, you've got a girl as well. And she's upwardly managing me quite a lot.
I love that. And she's empowered to do it.
Oh, yes, very much awesome. So. Yes, we've definitely created a new breed of women. No way have they got the same inhibitions that we have. The conversations that I have are incredible, not the type of conversations I had with my mother or my parents. and it comes full circle that every generation is getting better, stronger, happier, healthier. We want our children to grow into and create this amazing world.
Yeah,
so absolutely. That's my background. I live in Devon in the UK.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, really lovely. Although Devon and Cornwall, I don't know if your listeners will know, but we've got the little foot at the bottom of England. The foot nearly fell off in lockdown. We had so many people coming down to Devon and Cornwall because they weren't allowed to travel that the whole country tilted. But it was very, very, very busy down here, and the weather wasn't fantastic. We've had a terrible, terrible summer. So I live here, but I'm originally from London.
Right.
My husband calls me a geezer.
Right.
And my mother is, I think it's important actually, because my mum is a Glaswegian, born and bred, still got a very, very strong Glaswegian accent. And my dad is Irish Londoner, and his parents were born and bred in London, but also came from Ireland. So the whole heritage comes back to Ireland. And I think that's quite an important part of who I am and where I am, if I'm honest.
Interesting. Okay, so we'll come into that. That's very interesting. It's funny, actually, because I've had a couple of Irish guests, and in fact, I've got another one lined up for within a couple of weeks, which is cool. So there must be something in there.
Yes, energetically that you're drawing. Yes.
Yeah. Interesting.
Well, I think the Irish background is so important because there's so much trauma still involved.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so ingrained.
It is. And I always look at the 7 generations behind us,
right,
that are looking after us and informing us, and they've done it. One of the things that I pride myself on is that Glaswegian side, which is incredibly practical, with the Irish side, which is very creative, and they paint fabulous pictures, they tell great stories, they're very personable. It's that those two opposing sort of characteristics almost. So I often think that in my work I try and bring that beautiful creative side, but because of the Glaswegian stern, you're fucking crap. You're very good. It's a windy.
Yeah.
You have to have a scientific, reasonable logic behind it. So I try and blend those two parts of my personality in the work that I do. So in a lot of the coaching work that I do, if I'm talking to financial advisors who are very logical, I love, if I'm allowed with them, to discuss some more organic, spiritual, that's probably a bit too far, but even emotional way of being, and emotional intelligence and emotional agility, I can only do it if I base it in science, if I say it's neuroplasticity, and this is what we've noticed, and this is what we've seen from research, and when we've looked at mice, and we can see that 7 generations of mice later pick up the same habits and the same stressors and the same habits that they did 7 generations before, then I've got that strength or that scientific background to prove the point when they're feeling a little bit skeptical about things. So that's why I mention my parents and my lineage and where I'm from, because I think it still informs who I am now.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I love it that you have to wrap evolution in a wrapper of credibility.
Yes, but I think you do, because I mean, in management speak, anything that's to do with touchy feely is a soft skill, and even that that's quite it's not as strong perhaps as other skills that we see in leaders. But in the pandemic, we've had to rely on soft skills. And you and I were talking about hybrid working, which is happening a lot in the UK. And people are going back to work, either in the office, they're feeling very nervous about it, or they're staying at home. And it's created this the great resignation, where we in the UK are up to 1 million job resignations in July alone. Wow. I don't think it was that month, but it was a huge amount. And the McKinsey report was, here I am again, scientifically, not just me saying this. McKinsey says it as well.
Yeah. So it must be true.
Yes. Well, Who knows? But at least if you've got some research to back it up, it sounds a little bit more plausible and you've done your homework. But yeah, so people are evolving, they're changing, and the whole hybrid way of working means that we can't do the traditional ways of being. A management style of command and control, the whole coaching for managers and for leaders is really, really important in order to get the best out of their teams and allow the teams to be more empowered, to be employees, to feel more driven, to have more purpose. All the things that we call soft skills are now becoming much more important and recognized, because it's the only way that we can all move on and feel so we don't have the same office, we don't have this, we're not sharing the same space. We've seen into everybody's bedrooms, we've seen the top leaders.
That's so true. The whole Zoom thing.
Yeah. So we've democratized the workplace, and the traditional hierarchy is being broken down, which means that we have to find new ways of communicating. We have to find effective ways of being with each other. And in my little world, that is coaching. The way to get the best out of people is to ask questions, to challenge in a trusting environment, and to find the best in them and allow them to find the solutions.
So talking about evolution, and as you said about the communication, having to find the best in people, is that where you started your career?
No.
Okay, this is where it gets good. I love this. Yeah. Like, where did it all start?
No, it evolved. I hid it.
Of course you all did. I love it. One of my guests the other day.
And that was what interested me with your request to come on the podcast, because I get asked a lot because of the book and things like that. And I looked at and I listened to what you were saying about Abraham Hicks and Brené Brown. And I particularly loved the session that you did on reframing anxiety.
Oh, good.
That really hit home for me. And if you haven't heard that session, go back and listen to it, because it was really, really effective, made me stop in my tracks. And so for most of my life, I've hidden that side of me because, it was the Glaswegian, the push energy that worked so far. So I did all the academic stuff. I did a degree in law. It was the best degree to do at the time, or so I thought. I realised that I wasn't going to be a fantastic lawyer. I was going to be middle of the road. I thought, right, I'm not doing this. So I then went off and became a marketing manager for advertising agencies, which everybody in the 90s was doing.
Yeah.
And we flew down the Thames in helicopters and partied hard, and it was fantastic until
what happened?
I got pregnant.
Oh, an awakening.
Yes.
Go for it. Tell us more.
Well, okay. So I remember, this is deep. I remember I'd met the partner of my life. I knew that this was my partner. I knew that intuitively. I'd only been with him a short while, and I kept thinking, if only this pregnancy would last 21 months until I get the next promotion. If only I was an elephant.
How's that working for you? Can you control
that? But I was trying to shape my life to fit the logic that I saw.
Yeah.
And it really, really threw it up for me. And I remember very clearly that conversation. I was in the shower and I was thinking it all through. My husband now couldn't get involved in that conversation. It had to be down to me. And thankfully, he just left me alone to come to terms with it all.
Wise man.
Well, I think he knew, didn't he? If somebody else tries to, if it's that deep, if somebody tries to influence you, this is giving me tingles. So he left me to make that wonderful decision. And that's why we've got Ben. Ben, our 24-year-old, came out of that. And then I went back to work after the pregnancy, after Ben was born. I went back to work, went back into advertising, 10 o'clock phone calls, meetings till late at night. It was crazy. And Ben had severe eczema and asthma, and hospitalized a couple of times with it. I can't do this. I just can't do it. And I remember turning up to work one day and the phone rang. I sat at my desk. I was always there early. The phone rang. Ben was the first kid in nursery every day. And he was the last one to get picked up. And that was my mindset. And the phone rang, empty desk, nothing on it. The phone rang and somebody put a letter on my desk. And that was overload.
Wow.
That was it. And I walked out and I didn't take enough time off sick. I should have done. Didn't take enough time off sick. But that was the turning point. And I just thought, I can't do this to Ben. I can't do this to myself. What am I
good
doing?
For you.
So I had a complete U-turn and trained to be a fitness professional.
Welcome to that world, because I did the same.
Oh, wow. Well, it fits children, doesn't it?
I know. Absolutely. So that's just fascinating. So one of the things that I don't actually normally ask on an interview, but clearly this interview is going elsewhere. One of the things I very often ask people that I work with is, what was the purpose of Ben in your life? Oh. You know, if he's a guardian angel for you and he's chosen you.
Can I push back on that?
Of course.
I think he is. But I think the birth of my second child was more my guardian angel.
Oh, no, they're all going to have a purpose.
Oh, okay.
They'll all be with you for a different reason.
Okay, so the first one was there to...
What was his purpose?
My tracks.
Okay, so to change...
And rebel against everything that I thought was true.
Which is exactly what you said, that's his role in life. So totally cool. Awesome. Well done.
So he was the chaos maker. Yes. He put the chaos in and told me, you're not doing this. You're not doing this with life. Okay. And it was my dream as a little girl. I'd always seen myself as, businesswoman, successful, and he's gone on to do that, ironically. But that wasn't what I was able to do. So I had to do a complete U-turn and went off, became a fitness professional, studied Pilates, biomechanics, which is my obsession. I get drunk and want to talk to people about their posture, and I'm really boring. And then it quickly became evident that, posture and physicality alone wasn't the issue. I had to talk about nutrition, so I qualified as a nutritionist. And then I got to the stage where clients were, so this is what you need to do. And if you eat like this, or intermittently fast, or up your protein, or do this, or, post-exercise, do this. No, I can't do that. Yeah. I can't do that because the dog ate my work. Or are you asking me to stop having breakfast with my husband? No. Yeah. There was so much emotional baggage that goes around nutrition and exercise. I thought that's not the point of this. Yeah. So I then qualified as a coach and became an accredited coach. And that's evolved then being a trainer in the workplace and coaching in the workplace, which is why I work with financial advisors and law society and law industry, law firms. And that, so it kind of evolved. It had a step. Yeah. And it all worked through its way. I just followed the breadcrumb. I followed the lead. And I think my clients and what they were saying to me made me realise that I had to up my game.
Interesting. So over what time period has that evolved? Because if you've done Ben's 24 now, okay. Yeah. What, you mean it didn't happen overnight?
No, absolute decades. Yeah, long time. Yeah, I mean, I trained as a fitness professional 20 odd years ago. Pilates followed quite quickly. Nutrition followed quite quickly. I mean, they're a couple of years. Yeah. But the book, as you mentioned earlier, wasn't published until 2019. So it's taken a long time. And it's quite interesting because the coach who helped me with the book was saying, or the publisher was saying, I thought it was just going to be a mechanical, this is what you need to know about nutrition. I thought it was just going to be an ABC. And she said, well, is that how you would talk to a client? I said, no. No way. No, I'd find out more about them. I'd find out what was holding them back. I'd blah, blah, blah. And she said, well, that's what your book needs to be about. So the most of the book is then about mindset, is then about emotional understanding of yourself and what's holding you back. And there's one chapter on nutrition. which is not how I envisaged it when I first, put it together for the publishers. But yeah, so it's taken a long time, and we evolve, don't we?
Well, absolutely. So one of the questions that I ask along the way is there anything you missed from your chapter 1 life?
Yeah, I don't quite understand that question. Are you talking about?
So chapter 1 is before you have that turning. Chapter 1 is the time that you are following all the rules, you're doing what's expected of you, and then you have the wake-up call, you have the turning point, and then that's the next chapter as far as I'm concerned.
I don't. Yes, thank you for clarifying that. No, I don't think I do, if I'm honest, because it was great parties, champagne breakfast, helicopters down the Thames. It was high energy. But I recognise that now to be high cortisol, high adrenaline, high, burnout.
Fair enough.
So I don't. No, I'm happier, cozy in bed at 10 o'clock with a cup of tea and a book. The party's gone. The party. Yeah. I think I did it hard and fast for a few years, and found really quickly, no, this is not my cup of tea, as we say in the UK.
Yeah, but there is an element of been there, done that.
Yeah, but it's funny. Some people do it for longer.
Fair enough.
And some people do it. That's the way to enjoy life. Because I come across that a lot now, and it's all to do with deferred gratification and a marshmallow test and things like with the 5-year-olds, and whether they have the marshmallow now or they defer the gratification and they have 2 later. And I tell my sons that all the time. And they're like, Mother, would you shut up about the marshmallows?
Have they actually done it? Have they done the marshmallow
test? No, I just keep telling them that the children at 5 who deferred the gratification went on to be successful.
You see, before telling them the story, you should have got them to do it, because then you'd have known. That's what we did.
That's cunning.
But now you've given them the rules of the game, so it's a bit different.
They all know the rules of the game, and they're now teaching me the rules of the game. When I actually when I come off of the that's not very kind, Mummy, or that's not the way that we do it now, is it?
Bless them. Yeah. So your oldest child, Ben, he was really a wake-up call for you. And then what about your other 2 children? Have they made you shift your ways and perspective?
Yeah, I think you asked about timeframes, and there's a huge gap between Ben and child number 2, Joe. And I think I was beginning to wake up. I was beginning to realise this must have been my transition. I was still working in a corporate job when Ben was born, did that for another 2 or 3 years till I burnt out. And then the burnout was really deep, and I was starting to evolve, and then I changed career. And I think that took me another 9 years, because I had what was called secondary infertility.
What's that?
And I just couldn't conceive a second time. Wow. So it's actually a clinical name.
Yeah.
And no explanation. I had molar pregnancies, which mean that the pregnancy the actual baby died, but the placenta carried on growing. So it was, cancerous cells. I had all sorts of things, miscarried at very late on. It was just, and it kept happening over and over again. And one of the things that intrigued me about talking to you in the podcast was I remember really, really clearly letting go. I remember being at home, being upset for 9 years. I used to follow my cycle. You can imagine the pressure that puts on you as an individual, that puts on your marriage. When my husband was saying, but we've got a family, what's wrong? What's your obsession? What's going on with you? Everybody was kind of putting pressure on me to forget it, to let go. And I really couldn't. And I think that made the whole situation worse. So my sister, who is 10 years younger than me, she started to have her family. And I saw a photograph of her son and her, and I thought, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I just can't do it. And guess what happened?
You got pregnant. Yeah.
And that feeling and that memory is so vivid. And I apply it. I try to apply it in everything that I do now. I know I work really, really hard. I'm a bit of an A-type personality. I'm very on the ball. And I think, Adele, if only you could let go. because then everything you want will come to being. But it's really interesting when you've got that historic family line of mothers and women. Forgive me for being sexist, but that's what happened. My parents divorced when I was very young. My mother's parents divorced when they were young. So we've got a line. And women that have been independent, that have been financially independent, you know, it's hard to sort of energetically move on, even though logically I know that letting go is something that works and something that, you know, your wildest dreams will happen. So yeah, that's why there's a big gap, and letting go, and that moment of letting go and trusting the universe. And one of my favorite books is The Untethered Soul.
Yes, I love it.
I love that, and I completely relate to it. I do understand it logically. Emotionally, still got to kind of sort it all out and make sure that it doesn't move on to the next generation.
Well, good for you, because if you're able to clear that.
Well, I'm hoping so. I've done a lot of work, but I still got a lot of work to do.
I was going to say, and by the way, shamanic journeying is really good at clearing ancestral stuff.
Yeah, well, I've done so much work. I've never done that, but I've done, I mean, I was in psychotherapy as soon as I was 18. You know, it was something that interested me. And I've worked with coaches and all through my whole adult life, because to me it's growth, it's personal growth, and I'm interested in the way that I think and why I do something, and why people think differently, and why I self-sabotage and why other people self-sabotage, and it's that historic trauma, and it goes back to me, I think, in the Irish and the potato famine. My family think it's hilarious, but I have a passion for potatoes.
No, that is quite funny.
But also it's that deprivation. It's that real deprivation, and not being able to eat, and seeing the horse and cart go down the street with, you know, the food leaving the village and people dying, and it has a big effect on your psyche and your background, and it's just and so even if you don't believe that, the fact that you have the attributes of working hard is something that is prevalent, that you can easily see and identify, whether you believe it's come from, you know, historic trauma, or whether it's just your makeup, you know, that's but I so I'll leave that.
So I love that you've said that, because it's being committed and working hard towards a goal, or because that's what you believe life is about, to provide for yourself, your family, etc. That is a quality. Oh no, it can be seen as a quality, absolutely. Yes. And so if there is the belief that there is that this is handed down to you, or this is inherited, or whatever, surely that means you're also going to have inherited some other stuff. And that other stuff might be that belief of scarcity, famine, deprivation. So we can't just take, it's like, you know, you can't just take the good stuff from your ancestors and leave all the baggage behind. It doesn't work like that. You know, your DNA doesn't get sorted out, doesn't go, well, this is the good stuff and this is the bad stuff, and they go down different chutes and you get to choose what you take. It doesn't work like that. It's a bit like that movie. What's that Disney movie when you've got all the emotions, the characters?
Oh, I don't know. Don't do much Disney. Mine are screen ages now.
Oh, but yeah, but it's not.
Your listeners will tell you.
Yeah, exactly. I can't remember that movie, and so literally you get all of these emotions and memories, and they go off down different chutes. And so it brings it all very much to the forefront of perhaps you don't get to choose what you inherit.
Yeah, and I like your reframe, and it was your same reframe you did about anxiety. You know, it's, you know, you can reframe it. It's there for a purpose, and as long as you can reframe and positively reframe, okay, I feel anxious about this, and this, but no, see, this is me going back to biology. This is just the amygdala, just the part of the brain that's on constant scanning the universe or scanning the horizon for danger. As long as what I do is I kind of talk to the amygdala, or I talk to the inner critic or the inner child, and I'll just try and say, yeah, we're all good, we're fine, it'll be what will be. But it has to be a way that my amygdala believes. It can't be too wishy-washy. It's got to be kind of straight down the line, and whether that's kind of processing everything individually or just making yourself feel good by either running, good food, water, all the well-being tools that we use, which I use a lot. But that's what keeps me, it keeps anxiety and pressure and trauma at bay.
Interesting. Just the fact that you've said keeping all of those things at bay is a fantastic management style tool for dealing with your emotions.
Yes.
Which is interesting, because I don't know that emotions necessarily need to be managed.
Yes, I knew you were going to say that, because
Sorry.
Because that's what I do when I coach. I listen to the words that clients use, because words have gravitas, they have energy, and you've got to being very astute and listening to words, and the words that are used are insight bombs into that personality.
Because emotions
I think that you hit the nail on the head, because I am an exuberant, outgoing personality, and my daughter's the same, and we have both talked about managing that for other people, because she's going through secondary school. It's not, everybody's trying to be vanilla, everybody's trying to be bland.
Really,
they don't like personalities, it doesn't fit. So yes, I can hear what I've said, I acknowledge what you've said, and I am aware that that's what I do.
Huge congratulations, because it's only once you acknowledge that you can let go.
Yes.
And I think let go might be something that you've mentioned.
Yeah, a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah, a lot.
Anyway, moving on, because we don't need to get into a session.
But they're so interesting.
I know.
Interesting.
But you see, that's why we could talk for hours, because we can both go off on these different tangents. And once you listen to your language and you catch stuff, that's when you can say, oh, I hadn't seen it like that. And therefore you can make a change.
Yes, exactly. And that it's self-awareness, isn't it?
Totally. I mean, that's why it's so fascinating doing this podcast, because I have my list of questions, but I get so engrossed in listening to people's stories, because as you say, I listen to the words.
Yes.
And the meaning behind the words.
Well, that's what makes an interesting podcast.
So, but I do have to have my list of questions right here in front of me, because otherwise I'm so engrossed. I'm like, sorry, where were we going? So going back to the questions, so I don't keep you all day, because we'll just keep chatting and having a lovely time. What are the things that you still want to do?
My heart and my head finds it a sort of a pragmatic problem that it has to break down, but my heart would love to be on retreats 5 times a year. I've been to India, I go to Greece and Spain, I host retreats, and I would like to be doing that more and more. That's where I would like to go. So I'd like to bring everything that I've learned, Pilates, fitness, nutrition. I don't want to do any cooking.
Oh, don't blame you. Don't blame you.
No cooking, but and well-being. So I'm already doing that, but I'm only tipping my toe into the Ionian Sea. I would like to be doing that on a bigger level. I just energy from places are very important. As a presenter, and I have been for years, being on stage, you know that the atmosphere of a room can really affect how you present and how the recipient understands the situation, how they feel. So if you transport them to an amazing view or an amazing place or amazing weather, it can make that transition so much quicker. and it's easier for me. I can work from my heart rather than having to manage the room or the situation. So that's what I want more of. Universe.
There you go. That intention has been stated. So Adele, I'm conscious of time. As I say, we could just talk forever, because I would also love to talk more about the retreats, because I just started planning my retreats when COVID kicked in. So that's been quite interesting. And so that is where this, the Soulful Adventure Living, which is exactly where the title came from, that is where it's going.
So that's why we've connected energetically. I, interestingly, still ran my retreats through COVID. So I don't know how I managed it, but the universe gave me little gaps in travel time. And I took a whole group to Greece last year, and I'm going again this year. And I've persevered with it, even though it's been extremely stressful. We persevered with it purely because my clients, they were so confident and they desperately needed time away, especially during the pandemic and lockdown, because they're exhausted, overworked.
I was going to say, I bet the retreats during the pandemic were a very different experience than the retreats before, because the requirement was different.
Oh, it was, I can't explain how, I've never been so stressed in my life. I've had some terrible things happen to me, but coming up to the retreat but it was because my clients were steadfast, because they kept saying, we can do this, we've read what we've got to do, and it was fine. We read through all what was going on, and it was actually fine, and we could legitimately go. We had to do passenger location forms, and we had to do COVID tests, but it was actually fine to travel. And because of the retreat generally is an isolated venue, and the Europeans, I'm in the UK, the Europeans are so fastidious about their COVID safety. I was in Spain a couple of weeks ago, and there was an argument over a queue, and there was a Spanish family going absolutely crazy at a Ukrainian because she wasn't wearing a mask. I mean, it is really switched on, and everybody's wearing masks everywhere. So and that's probably the best way to contain the virus, the masks, as opposed to hand washing, apparently. So yeah, it all happened. Not as many as I would have liked. So I'm hoping within next year, 2022, that lots more retreats will be going on. But I think it's going to be packed. It's going to be
Well, I am doing an exploratory visit to the other side of Canada for our own adventure, and I'm hoping that is certainly going to lead to a new retreat location.
It's finding the location, isn't it? That's the hardest work. Yeah. I've got my Greek one, and I'm not getting. It's 5-star, and it's got infinity pools with every villa, and I know the hosts really well, and they're the ones that cook, and they're the ones that tell us about the Greek mythology that's all over the place, and so that was one of the major reasons as well why I continued to go, because I wanted to support them as well as my clients, as well as trying to feed my intuitive need. To keep doing it. So there were a lot of reasons going, but none of them were logical.
There you go. You see, you can't manage it.
No, okay.
Because when you expand into that, sorry, truth bomb.
No, it's good.
There's a lot of fear
there, isn't there? There's a lot of fear. I mean,
yeah, even for optimists like you and I.
Yeah.
You got to catch that fear, because it creeps up on you.
It's ancestral fear. Anybody that spoke up burnt at a stake. It's like...
Oh, for goodness sake, can we not just have a shamanic session together? I will help you release that. Honestly, I'm going to send you like a voucher. Say, right, Adele, we're releasing that. Let's go.
Okay, all right. I think I can feel it. It's come down. The fear has come down, and it's all deprivation and having to work very hard. And anyway, I'll stop talking.
Okay, just so you know, that fear is not yours.
I know.
Okay,
I do know that. Sorry, I didn't mean to sound.
No,
assumptive.
No, sorry at all. No, none required. Just all
because it's not logical. There is I've done all the work. I've been in psychoanalysis.
Yeah.
I've done coaching. I've done physics. I know that everything is good. So what the hell is it?
Yeah.
And so therefore, I know that it's That's why I keep picking up threads on other places.
It's in your energetic body. That's why we just need to release it. Because anyway, I will not promote anyway. I will not promote shamanic journeying any longer or anymore, because it is an out of body experience and there's no two ways about it.
Wow.
However,
it's got to be very trusting then, hasn't it?
It's phenomenal. Anyway, this isn't about promoting me. So back to you. How can people find you and how can they get hold of the book Gorgeous? Because I love it. It totally speaks to the very practical side. It also speaks to the emotional side. It's a really useful, helpful book.
Yeah, good.
No matter whether you're coming from the logic or the spiritual or the whatever, it's so helpful. So,
well, it's that yin and yang of me. It had to come together like that. So it's on Amazon. It was a #1 bestseller.
Yay!
In the UK, it knocked Michael Mosley off the top spot, and anybody that lived in the UK knows he was the person that started the 5-2 fasting and things like that. And so it knocked him off the #1 spot. It's #1 in Australia, so it can be called an international bestseller.
Congratulations!
Yeah, that was a big coup. So there's that. You can find that on Amazon.
Okay.
My happy place, I have to be honest, is Instagram. I love Instagram. I think Instagram is happy photos. It suits my positivity. So on Instagram, you can find me. And if you're looking professionally, LinkedIn is also my happy place because it's quite formal.
Okay, so and all under Adele Stickland. Is your Instagram Adele Stickland?
I'm a stick, not strict.
What did I say? Did I say strict?
No, you are right. But most people that are listening, you are perfectly right. But most people that are listening will look up strict because that's more common. But I'm a stick, which is ironic because I'm not a stick.
That's hilarious. Okay, so Adele Stickland.
Yes, stick.
There you go. Excellent. Okay, cool. So Instagram's the best place. Do you do anything on Facebook?
I do. I've got groups. I mean, I've got something like 10,000 followers on Facebook, but the algorithm and stuff like that doesn't really work. And I don't really put a huge amount of effort into it. But you can find me, Adele Get Gorgeous, on Facebook. And I do a lot of videos on Facebook. And my other place that I work is YouTube. I've got my own YouTube channel, which is where all my Pilates.
Oh, my goodness. I've done loads of those.
Yes. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, awesome, because I did your 6-week tummy challenge too.
Yeah.
That's how I found you originally.
Yes, yeah. So I've done the tummy challenge, which is all Pilates based.
Yes.
Rather than crazy, weight bearing, all the, so Pilates quickly is all about the 3 core muscles. Well, it's the core muscles and it's the deep abdominal that helps to pull everything in. And then you've got the obliques and then the 6-pack. But lots of people look at just the 6-pack. Yeah. And that's called a superficial muscle because it's so close to the skin. Whereas the deep abdominal, which we focus on in Pilates, is so close to the skeletal frame. It's really deep inside and it's close to the pelvic floor. Mm-hmm. Pelvic floor.
We love the pelvic floor.
We love the pelvic floor.
Yes.
And that helps to pull everything together. So for me, Pilates is, a superb biomechanical tool. It helps keep your shoulders and hips healthy and strong. And it's the old saying, if you don't use it, you'll lose it.
Absolutely.
And we have to stay strong. And the big theme that follows my family is osteoporosis. And so Pilates and weight-bearing exercise is a biggie for me.
Cool. So for anybody who wants to know more about that, they can just tune into Instagram or to YouTube. Yeah. If they want to know more about the book, it's gorgeous. If they want to know more about professionally for training, especially if they're in England, then that's LinkedIn.
Yes.
So you're a girl about town. Holy cow.
Well, I've been doing it for decades.
Fair enough. Okay.
Takes time, doesn't it, to build it all up? But I have been doing it a long time. So, yeah, that's why.
Good for you. I love that. Okay, well, just to say thank you so much for taking the time. And it's lovely to chat in person. I wished at times like this I was just down the road and we could stop for a cup of tea and go for a walk. And I'd love that.
Global world. We can really. And
we can.
Yeah.
Virtual cup of tea. Yeah. Indeed. And so I will close it off here just by saying thank you so much. Thank you also for listening and for tuning in to another episode. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, please share it with your friends. please listen to other episodes of Magical Midlife, because if you actually keep tuning into this stuff, you will start to lead a more magical midlife. Do you agree, Adele?
I do. I mean, I listened to those 2 podcasts and that really, really affected me. I listened to more than that, but those 2 were how to release anxiety. I think I can't even remember it now because we talked about so much, but yeah, that was really profound for me in particular.
Awesome. Love that. And then just for more information, you can find out about the work I do, because I have referred to my shamanic work rather a lot today.
Yeah, good.
And that's at soulfuladventureliving.com. And there will be retreats planned on there when the timing is right for me to run retreats. But if not, please tune into Adele, because Adele is doing it all over Europe. And
it's easier for me, isn't it? It's much easier for me.
And watch that space.
Yeah, we'll be doing them together, no doubt.
I look forward to it. Absolutely. Righty ho. I won't hold you up any longer, but thank you so much. It's been awesome. And please tune into this episode, share it with your friends, and listen to the other podcasts too. And I will see you on the next episode. So bye from me and bye from Adele.
Bye.